Hi everyone. We're here for our artist talk with Stephanie Fehrenbach and Lisa Stead, and I'm just going to get us set up here. Hi Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi Lisa.
Hi, Steph.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
That's good. I love the work behind you. It looks so nice.
Well, I grabbed what I have left.
Yeah.
Because so much of it's at the gallery.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is great. We have some people hopping on. That's wonderful. Just give it another minute for people to join in.
I can't see without glasses.
All right, that's great. Well, thank you everyone for tuning into our Instagram Live Artist Talk with Stephanie and Lisa. My name is Danielle and I'm the director at Westland Gallery. And we have an exhibition on right now with Stephanie and Lisa's work. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be chatting with Lisa and Stephanie about the collection in the show, about their independent careers. And we will even be getting a little gallery tour, which is where I am right now, and some studio tours from Stephanie and Lisa. So thank you both, you two artists, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
No worries.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this opportunity to chat and also to do so on Instagram Live. And I'm hoping that some of our audience will take advantage of the chat box at the bottom to put some questions out for our artists, and I'll try to get through those as well. So here we are in Westland Gallery. That's where I am in London, Ontario. And this exhibition is called Synchronicity, and it brings together the work of Stephanie on the bottom left hand of your screen there, who is an artist from Kitchener, Ontario. And on the right hand, Lisa Stead, who is an artist here in London, who lives actually quite close to the gallery, so a real local for all of our London followers. So this title Synchronicity is something that you two came up with together, and that's often a challenge that I like to throw at our exhibiting artists, especially when they haven't met before, which was the case with you two. It's kind of a nice conversation starter and gets you looking for similarities in your practices. So how did you come up with the title Synchronicity?
Well, I think we were kind of batting things back and forth just through emails.
Yeah.
And I may have snuck onto Stephanie's website.
I'm sure I creeped on you too.
Yeah. I mean, I was already familiar with the work, obviously, but I wanted to read a little bit more about her artist statement and I thought, oh my gosh, we do such similar process that, you know, I messaged her and I said, you know, it's kind of uncanny. I mean, though the looks are very different.
Yeah.
Obviously our process was interesting to find that it's very, very similar. And so we thought we would play around with that, batted a few ideas back and forth. And actually it was Stephanie that came up with Synchronicity. And then I Googled the meaning and it actually fit perfectly.
I totally Googled too. I mean, it's so funny because, yeah, like we're like, we know what we're looking for, but finding the right word can be so challenging. And like, we both knew that we wanted something to do with our intuition and our process because that sort of really connects us. And I don't know, I think that word just popped up on a quote that I read and I was like, I think this, and I can be so like, oh, is that right? I don't know. I'll think about it some more. And Lisa's like, no, we're going with that.
I already read and I was like, oh, it just fits perfectly, right? Like when you look at the definition and the origination of the word, like it just fit perfectly.
What is the, you know, textbook definition, or what came up on Google when you
well, I have it here. It was first used by a psychologist named Carl Jung to describe a phenomenon of meaningful coincidences. Yeah. And so I think that kind of stuck, like the two of us, though, working in different cities, different work. In the end, the process was the same. And so there was definitely a connection within, and a coincidence really, because I think neither of us, I mean, I was familiar with Stephanie's work, but neither of us really knew too much about the other person's process. So it was really quite a coincidence to find out that yours was similar. So the word fit, for sure.
To throw another coincidence at you, I've told Stephanie this, but I've been working through a book from the 90s called The Artist's Way, which is kind of this creativity process 12-week program. Anyways, it was gifted to me by somebody who came into the gallery and knew me and thought it might appeal. And actually, the chapter I read last week talks about synchronicity, talks about Carl Jung and that definition of synchronicity.
Really?
Yes. And it just, anyways, it made me think, and it's funny to know that you had also come across the term in that same way, because I have used it in different ways and heard people use it in different ways. Sometimes in that way, almost like serendipitous, that like a kind of a word like that. But also as like synchronous, or I don't know if that's a word, but when you are in sync with something else, or in sync with your own practice, even kind of that flow that you can get into when you're creating. So I think it has a couple nice layers.
That was definitely
does.
Part of it when I was thinking of it too, because like especially this current like body of work that I was making, I was trying to be really, really like in the moment and going with whatever came out more so than maybe I had been in the past. So I felt like it was appropriate for what we had done now. So yeah, and it's so funny with The Artist's Way, because that book has been sitting on my shelf for years, and the fact that like I messaged Danielle in my pajamas the other day. I was like, I found it, I knew I had it. And I was just like, this is synchronous or whatever. because I found it, and I was like, I knew this, it was like that book was being called to me recently, so like it was funny that you mentioned it and I was getting into it again. So.
It talks a lot about that, about kind of like being open to chance encounters and how that might inform your work. So I want to follow up on what you just said, Stephanie, in terms of maybe creating from a different point of view or from a different place for this show, because we did an exhibition with you just last year, which is not like, we often have a larger space between times of showing an artist's work, but just a year between the last show and this one, yet I noticed a big difference in your work. It's still the same process of paint application, that very recognizable impasto, really, really thick painting on the canvas, but there's kind of a different energy and different imagery, or lack of imagery perhaps, in your work. Can you talk about that?
I just I don't know whether it was just because we've been locked down or COVID, and we're just like, where do we draw inspiration from? And like sometimes I think that we're just sponges for the world around us. Like when I was painting flowers before, it wasn't always like it's a particular garden or anything. It's just like I feel like I would absorb imagery and things, and then it would come out on canvas in an intuitive way as well. But for this, I just felt like all I had to draw on was my own feelings. Like I was like, what else can I pick from? Like where else can I draw? Like, I mean, I always do that, but I just felt like I needed to almost use painting as like a diary more so than ever, and just sort of be more emotional and vulnerable with it, I suppose. So I was kind of trying to explore like color in a way maybe more intense than I had, or different palettes than I had, where they would maybe, like how I approached the paintings first. So I was like, would feel the colors that I wanted to express a certain emotion, and then those would just get put on the canvas, and then it would kind of grow from there. So yeah, it was definitely, I felt like even more so intuitive than previous work. Interesting.
I like the point you raised kind of about where we're finding our inspiration these past 2 years, especially from people who are, exactly, artists who are social, and also artists who take inspiration from their surroundings, which most do, right? Getting out in the world and just picking up almost subconscious inspiration from what we're doing. Lisa, what's been your experience the last 2 years trying to stay inspired?
Well, all kidding aside, when the pandemic started, it actually halted me for a bit. I really was challenged to, I find any inspiration. Times were so uncertain, there was so much fear, and it just kind of crippled me. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I have to find a way to, creativity is such an outlet for me, right? That I kept thinking, well, what if I can't paint again?
Yeah.
But, it was really kind of a transition point for me, because while I was doing a lot of abstract, I wouldn't say that I had really stuck with one particular style. And I'm not sure what happened, whether it was the little bit of spring that started to peak up. But it was about 2 or 3 months into the pandemic that I kind of went, I'm just going to go out and pour all the emotion or whatever feelings into it all. And it was funny. The first few, I was kind of like, this is not planned at all. Like I think I would try to structure an idea as to where I wanted things to go. And I was so frustrated with, it's just not going there. And maybe it was the battle between, what was going on emotionally in my head and trying so badly to like force it out, but I just kind of committed to being a lot more free than ever. And though there is still some structure there, I taught myself to play more than I think I ever have. And so I play now more. All those layers get looser and looser and looser.
Yeah.
But the playing is so key. Like that's like the first thing that I am so attracted to with your work is just like you can feel the playfulness and just the line work and everything. It's just comes.
And
Mhm.
I think it was the fact that spring was coming, but I've got a great window in my studio and our gardens are right behind there, and whatever the weather is, definitely inspires movement or color or shape, those types of things. And so they all get incorporated within the work. But yeah, I think I still allow myself to have that little bit of structure, because the very base layers of my paintings are all very organic shaped. But then the music goes on and hopefully no one can see I'm dancing around and,
I
and
know.
lots of mark making and moving around. And so that's when the fun stuff starts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like this picture of you guys dancing in your studios and painting. That was one question I had. So I know in particular you, Lisa. I'm not sure, Stephanie. You can tell me. But you have a couple of steps to set your painting up, and then you move into this kind of free painting stage. Is there a favorite time in the process for you, or like a favorite step in the painting process? Like a moment where it takes on a life of its own or something like that.
Yeah.
People sometimes talk about that. Yeah.
Like I said, the first bit is there is some planning and then, building together those organic shapes. But as soon as that is all laid and I get to pull out the pastels and the spray paint and, stencils and all the other crazy movement that happens, like then it's either headphones on if it's late at night, or I'll, the tunes go up in the studio and there's probably here and I'm literally moving around. It's kind of, I'm lost in the process when it comes to that stage. It does become very intuitive, and I very quickly start moving around, laying different things. So yeah, probably the last half is more favorite, because that's when I just get to play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stephanie, what's your process of building pieces up? We'll take everyone on a little walk at the end, and we'll see Stephanie's studio too. But in some parts of your canvas is like over an inch thick.
Yeah. There's a lot of layers sometimes. Well, so it's so funny that you say that, Lisa, like the last part, because for me, I think the beginning is actually my favorite, because I'm so much more like free with myself. Like that's when I just like lay out all my colors and I'm like getting into my music. I'm dancing terribly. And then, you're just like kind of just figuring it out. And I guess because I'm less critical of myself at that beginning stage, because there's like all this time to figure it out. We're just laying color down. We're just having fun. So I think that's sort of like where I feel the most free. And that's what I enjoy like the most. And just that's when it's getting out on canvas. And then through the layers is interesting too. It's just, I think I'm more like, I just like really go for it at the beginning. And then I'm just sort of a little bit more mindful of what I'm doing, like as I layer. But, yeah. And then it just, I don't know, cause like we were talking about this at the opening, that you start on a piece and then you're in this constant rotation because we layer them so much that it's not like you're working on just one and until it's completed. It's just like this rotating thing of canvas, different ones. So, yeah, I think it's kind of like, I like having that time to sit back and reflect on it and come back and see where it goes next. And sometimes what it starts out as is totally different than how it ends up. Like yeah.
I feel like I concentrate too much on that first stage for me when all the shapes are going down. And then I'm like, I don't know what I'm sweating over, because by the time I get to the end, it's completely unrecognizable anyway.
Yeah.
That's good. I think that energy of letting the painting kind of take its course and just run where it wants to go really comes across in the work, because it all there's just such an energy and such a natural feeling to all of the paintings. So I think that really comes through. Let's talk color for a second. You both hit on it. Obviously, it's a very important part of your work for both of you. And for this exhibition, I think color played a huge role in the installation of the show as well, which is something that Al does. So Al Stewart, one of the gallery owners, hangs the exhibition. And he wrote a little bit about the experience of hanging this show that was on our Facebook and our email at the beginning. But it just kind of evolved like a dance. Like, he got to watch the show unfold because these paintings, they were friends with each other, and he joke about how it seemed like the two of you were best friends, though you had never met. But some of these paintings, you could swear you were working in the same room together. The way that colors meld together. I'm going to show one wall in particular because it just
it's so weird.
So that is weird.
Don't give our secret away. It looks like we planned this. Like,
I know, but we did.
The colors. It's amazing if you can see it in person, but the colors and even the lines and the shapes almost flow into one another. And obviously that couldn't have been planned. You were working independently in each of your studios in 2 different cities. So
sending your vibes.
Yeah.
Was that a surprise to both of you? What was your reaction coming to see the show?
Absolutely. Well, you know what? When I brought my work in, Stephanie had just been there, so I only got a quick glimpse of them, and they were, they weren't hung or anything, but I had no idea what to expect, because we didn't talk about it ahead of time, like, what kind of palette we were going to work with. And I just thought, I'm just going to be true to me and do the vibrancy that everyone doesn't get in the winter and make things bright. And then, like, literally when Al was showing a picture of how they kind of went so well together, it's like, what? That is insane. And I mean, in person, it's really bizarre.
It is.
Yeah.
Because you can literally stand looking at a piece from each of us. And like you said, they seem to flow together. The palette is almost identical in some of them. It was just very, very bizarre, but I mean, really neat to see, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think it brings us back to that conversation about coincidence, or do you think there was something that was influenced?
Maybe.
It's a happy coincidence, so maybe that's more serendipitous, but
it was fun to see the show evolve. Sometimes these kind of situations happen when we're working in customers' homes too, and pieces that they collected years apart just look as if they could be an intentional diptych or something, right? They just go together so well. So you said briefly, Stephanie, or Lisa, that you were thinking about winter and the seasons and almost rebelling against that a little bit with your color. What is both of your experiences of being an artist in Canada with such varied seasons throughout the year? Do you find it influences your body of work as the months go by?
I do. I think, when I look at everything that I've done over the last year and a half, I would say that they're all vibrant. I think they all have, you know, I love color. I mean, it does bring joy. So that kind of happens. And sometimes, you know, I'll grab a color completely by accident and think this is going to be bizarre. And then it works. So, I mean, it's not always so planned out. It is really sometimes very spur of the moment. But yeah, I mean, if I look, I mean, obviously not when I'm painting them, but when I look back and go, and like, I can tell that that was painted in the fall. And maybe that's just because the colors are a little more richer, you know, like the season of fall. And then in the winter, I mean, I can't, I'm not a fan. I think
Me neither.
we talked about that. I am not a fan of winter. I shouldn't live here. I don't like it at all. So maybe I draw from, you know, things I would rather be looking at as far as color. And so I think, you know, vibrancy comes out that way in the winter. I have more of a yearning to have it. But then, you know, what I'm painting now all of a sudden is starting to look a little spring-like. So maybe it's the hoping again.
Yeah. You paint where you want to be. I think that happens to me kind of a lot. Like, yeah, winter just seems to drag on. I mean, I don't always hate it, but it just, especially when we're stuck a lot, like it just feels like it drags on. And yeah, I think I just go through phases of like sometimes I want more soft and sometimes I want more vibrant, and it just goes. I just kind of follow whatever my mood is at. And I guess in the winter, I'm like craving a bit more. I think I felt the same as you, is that I didn't want to just have like white, gray paintings. I really needed some color. So yeah, it just kind of was where I wanted to go.
You definitely brought that to us. So it's very colorful in here. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your early careers and kind of what brought you to the place that you're in right now. Stephanie, can you start? You wrote a beautiful story on your website, if anyone else wants to go and click on that.
Yeah. I feel like it was written before COVID. I feel like I need updating. But yeah, it was I had a bit of a, like, you know, the journey is never straight line. It is always like this. And I was a really artsy kid and I went to art school and did that. But I was definitely had a period of being kind of confused and lost after art school and not doing any creating for a long time. And I just like sometimes like it takes a while before you realize what you're missing. And I started sort of dabbling and painting again in my kitchen like 15 years ago. I don't know how long ago. Can't even remember anymore. And yeah, so it's sort of that just having that space like without being like looked at, like nobody cared. I was just doing it for me. Sort of ignited that spark again. And over time, I just I decided like this is not necessarily like full-time painter, but I was like I need to have a creative life in some kind of way. I was working more corporate jobs and things and doing random things, like lots of different things. And I just knew I wanted to have more of a creative life. And long story short, I guess we eventually moved out of Toronto so that we could afford a place where I could have a place to paint. And having that like dedicated area was like life-changing to me. I didn't have to just clean up my kitchen every night, like had a place to set out. And I worked part-time teaching so that I could also paint, and like having that, it used to be just like a side thing. And then once it became something that I had to do regularly and I really dedicated to, I just became more disciplined. And then it just kind of came from there. Like I had a show, I get gallery, and yeah, it's become the best thing. Like I'm so happy to be able, grateful to be able to do this. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And how about you, Lisa? Were you a creative as a kid?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, I don't know, maybe my mom's on watching right now, but she'll remember the coloring contest I won, I think when I was 5 or 6. That started it all. No, I think, yeah, I mean, I was labeled the like artistic pretty young by some teachers who were very good at mentoring me in a certain direction. But I did, like Stephanie said, there's lots of turns in the road. And I mean, I did a lot of corporate stuff too. And I mean, I studied photography. I actually had my own business for quite some time where I was doing photographs. I loved it. It just never quite fulfilled me the way I would have wanted to feel in a career like that. And, you know, that's what I studied in college, was photography and some graphic design too. So I did a little bit of that, like both, you know, and like I said, it wasn't truly fulfilling. It wasn't as really as creative as I would have really wanted to be, but you know, you've got bills, you've got kids, you've got whatever you need to do, right, to pay the bills. I think I started up painting maybe again because I did it all through high school and for fun on the side. It wasn't ever really anything that was thought to be a career. And I think, you know, I would have loved to have gone to an art college or some sort, but that was not looked upon as a good idea back then. I had, you know, find a secure future, get a job that has a paycheck and those types of things in my head. So, I mean, that's what I did. And it was fine. I think I learned a lot along the way through different jobs and different careers. And, you know, you get to a point where you're just wasn't feeling fulfilled and thought about starting again. And yeah, I think it was about 7 years ago. I picked up a brush again and it was awful.
That's okay.
It's like, despite what you think, it's not like getting on a bike.
No.
I went, oh, these are really awful. Like I have to really work at this, but I was doing it for fun. So it didn't really matter. But slowly, you know, it kind of started to turn into something, and there was interest from family and friends and other people who kept saying, you know, you should probably think about doing this instead of, you know, what you're doing that you don't like. So
Yeah.
I mean that's really what led to it. And I mean it's been going brilliantly, and some galleries have picked me up, and you know, we're on the right road now. It feels right.
Yeah.
Much more fulfilling. So I feel like I've got a great space here where we are, and you know, it allows me to be able to walk out of the house and be close but not in the house, and have a place to go to call work every day, and the commute's real short. So
Just be
I love that.
that support is so important, and it can be hard to visualize what a creative career is going to look like because there isn't as much of a mold or a model as there are in some other industries, right? I know, Stephanie, you had a job that exposed you to some professional artists, which gave you that spark to say, hey, you know what? I could do this.
Yeah, that was so, you need sometimes like that model to say like in front of your face and be like, oh, I can actually insert myself and think like that's a possibility for me, which I hadn't thought because my parents didn't tell me that I guess they knew I went to art school or whatever, but it wasn't this like known expected thing that I was just gonna like leave and get a gallery, and that it wasn't sort of like that. I didn't really know what to do after. So having that exposure to other artists working as artists was so key.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is possible. Yeah.
I love hearing that you have some experience in photography, Lisa. I'm curious, are there any other, because you create abstract work, how do you have any source materials? Do you find yourself taking photos or color swatches or sketching?
Yes.
I'm just curious, what are the different elements of your studio practice?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't picked up, you know, a camera in a while. I don't know why. It's funny you asked that, but I would say that, yeah, I mean, I would definitely, you know, source some old photos. Sometimes I actually find a little fun to put stuff into black and white. I love black and white. I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat all over again. But black and white, you're working with tone, but that's when you really see the shape, right? And composition is so much more apparent in black and white. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, of some of the reference that I have pulled up whether it's been, you know, trips that we've taken or whatever, if I throw it into black and white, I start to see shapes instead of, you know, me standing out by a tree or, you know, whatever the case is.
Interesting,
So, I mean,
because composition and shape is a very important part of your work, right?
It is, yeah, very much. And the flow of things. And I think that, you know, some of them I can look at and know absolutely. I referenced a photo from, you know, when we went away once, and I can see the destination in it. Nobody else would be able to, but I know it's there, and maybe that's just because I've pulled something. I've even, I forever was taking photos of standing underneath trees and aiming the camera straight up at, all the branches intertwining and the shapes that they would make and the negative space between them and the shape of that negative space. And so, yeah, I mean, absolutely it has impacted the work, not as consciously as I would like, but it's in there. I know it is. I know it is. Yeah.
How about for you, Stephanie? Where any information gathering aspect of it?
Oh yeah, I just feel like it's not one place. Like, I mean, it's, like I take a daily walk and it's just like absorbing the shapes or how the light goes through the leaves. And like, I would visit gardens sometimes in the summer, or like it's photos a lot when we're stuck inside of other things that inspire me. Color always. Like I feel like I'm collecting palettes from places and just loving different combinations and putting things together. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I go up to people
Yeah.
like if they're wearing a blouse or an outfit or something that's got great color, like I'll go and ask if I can take a photo, just because I like the combination of the colors. And so I'll be like, that's got to be a painting. I got to do a palette that looks like that.
My husband looked through my phone once. He's like, "Who's this girl?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just like your outfit." Like, and like,
yeah,
I like this color together.
And they're always like, "Oh no, just don't get my face." And I'm thinking, it's okay. I don't. I just want your shirt.
That's in your studio. I'm like, "Oh, it's not her." It's
That's so funny. I like that. So yeah, maybe even fashion can be a source of color inspiration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How about reading or listening? What do you do while you're working in the studio? Yeah,
it's usually music, and it's just like sometimes random Spotify playlists of a mood. Sometimes it's like a podcast, like Glennon Doyle, but then, I don't want to, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I paint better when it's music, like, so that usually the podcasts are usually if I was just like stretching a canvas or doing something, packaging, something that's more mindless. Yeah. Then, but music tends to be when I'm actually creating.
What are some of the mood playlists? Like, do you know any of the words that you gravitate towards?
There's one that I think is called like Wake Up Happy. And like, sometimes you need that. You're like, I'm not feeling it. Like, some of them are like, just like coffee shop, or I don't even remember what they are. I have a bunch of Paris cafe scene or something like that. Yeah, it depends on what I feel like. I don't know. There's so many. Yeah.
How about you, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, if I'm, like she said, if I'm stretching canvases or packaging or anything that's, doesn't really need like a direct creative vibe, then I might have Netflix on, right? And doing that. But when I create, it's absolutely music. It has to be music. And that's, I guess it's the tempo, right? It's the tempo.
Yeah.
And sometimes that'll dictate the marks for sure. It's always during that very fun time when I'm painting that I've got to have music, and it's got to be loud. And and sometimes it's really, like you said, the coffee house is a good one.
Yeah, like sometimes it's better for me even like no lyrics, like even just some sort of like nature meditative sounds, like something that just gets me out of my head. And then, because like with a podcast or something, you're trying to listen and concentrate, so it's not, it just kind of gets in the way.
For sure.
So yeah, you need something that pulls you out of that zone, I think.
Yeah, because you want to tap into that subconscious, that kind of flow, right? Where you're not doing your head. That makes sense. Quickly, let's touch on titles, because so many artists struggle titling their work. And I think, especially when you're working with abstract, you don't even have a cue of, landscape with sunset, whatever. You really have to dig deep and get creative on your titles. So where do each of you source titles from?
I hate titling the work. Well, I used to hate it, I should say that. I felt like sometimes it ended up being a longer process than making the painting. I thought like it shouldn't be this hard, but it you do have, Steph, you and I talked about this. I'll have silent conversations with them. Sometimes if I'm doing several at a time, I had to turn them because the one I'm
I
working
started
on.
doing that now.
Did
Yeah,
you? Yeah.
I did because there was one that was bothering me,
I
and I had
know.
to
And
move
so
it.
if you're in
I'm
that,
like,
in
you
that
need to go in
space
the
where
corner.
it's not working, I literally have to turn it so it doesn't talk to me anymore because it's, it's loud when I'm trying to do something else on another painting. So I do turn them. But
Mhm.
what was the point of your question? I went off track. Sorry.
Titles.
Yeah,
That's okay.
titles.
That was very.
So I would, yeah, I was always, trying to come up with something meaningful, but not too long. And, you want it to fit on the card. And I ended up, there was one piece that really, I looked at it and I came up with, it was a common saying and I can't remember exactly which one it was. So then I started looking up common sayings, idioms.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're all idioms, like they're all a common saying. And they're all things that we say that we most often have no idea where the term even originated from or its true meaning. So I've kind of fallen into that where I will look at something and maybe it's the colors of it. Like actually the one behind you, that was a sunset. Like that palette came from a beautiful sunset that I did take a picture of.
Oh, nice.
And that's why it's called Sailor's Delight, right?
I love that.
Big
I like
Sky
it.
Night,
Yeah.
Sailor's Delight, right? All those
Yeah.
things that, we always say them and sometimes we don't even know where they really came from or what they mean. So
Yeah.
and it's much easier to name them now if I put that in process.
That's
I like
really cool.
I like the parallel between it being a phrase that we say so often, we don't know, we even remember the source of it, and then kind of that draws a bit of a parallel with abstract work because of the way that it evolves naturally, or the way that you are both describing your painting process.
Yeah.
You don't exactly know where it comes from, and even the roots of the painting, the first draft, could be nothing like the way it ends up, right? So I kind of like that. How about for you, Stephanie?
For me, a lot of them come from like song lyrics and things. Like I tend to, what I do now, I same Lisa, like struggled. Like I don't, can be really challenging to think of like once you've made it. So I realized that, cause I'd be sitting with a piece so long after trying to figure out a title. And so while I'm creating now, cause I go through so many, I just kind of like keep a list. Like if I'm listening to something and a lyric jumps out at me or it feels like inspiring in some way, then I'll jot it down. Or even just like a word that comes to my mind while I'm doing it, I'll just write everything down. And then afterwards, like once it's all done, I kind of go through them and I feel like I just like look at it and see whatever if like it matches up and it seems right and I feel like it's right, then it kind of pairs together. Yeah. And sometimes they're not like song lyrics, but sometimes it's just, I don't know, whatever comes to mind when I'm staring at it. Yeah.
Perfect. So we've got about 20 minutes left here in our chat tonight. I'm hoping that we will have some audience questions. So if you have any questions for either Stephanie or Lisa or both of them, please feel free to put them in the comment box at the bottom and we'll be sure to ask. But I want to make sure we have time to see both of your spaces because it's always interesting to see where you guys are boogieing in front of your canvases. So would either of you like to start with a little tour?
I'll go.
Okay.
Sure, okay.
Go for it. So I won't make you go outside on this cold winter evening, but Lisa has a very separate little building in the back, okay, in behind your home, so you're able to take that short commute.
Yeah,
Few steps out the door.
it's about 10 steps out of our back door, which is great. Yeah, it's it's fortunate we had the space when we moved into this house. It was an unfinished garage that I think someone had been using as a business. And anyway, we finished it, and one half is man cave and the other half is my studio. So, but it's enough space, and it's more than enough space for what I do. And like I said, it's so nice to just walk out the door. Like the house can, be dirty and I don't have to see it, but then like it's nice. It's 15 steps outside the back door and quiet and away from everything else. But yeah.
So flip your little camera, or flip your camera around and.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'll unclip you here.
Some people might have visited Lisa's studio. So.
Yeah. So here, I have a door off the garage, or sorry, off the driveway. But then, so we had some spots built just so I could slide some work in and out and have some storage space.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite part,
Love those.
yeah, is the wall easel that I had built. So what's really nice about this is that, so I can, you know, I can turn these and I can set it to any height and it'll pinch the painting. But then, like you can see here, I can do 3 at a time. So it's nice to be able to clip them in and out, or big ones can be clipped in by a couple. And then, you know, these pieces themselves will move along that track so they can go this way and this way. Right?
Yeah, really smart design. And we challenged Lisa to paint really big for us.
Yes, I did 2 for you.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, and so more storage, and then there's that great window I get to sit at and in the nice weather get inspired. I try not to look out in the winter. Yeah, and then you liked this part when you came, Danielle.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
then
God.
I have all this
All the
storage,
colors.
right? So yeah, it's all, and it's rainbow order.
Love
yeah,
it. Oh, you're so organized.
Well, it isn't always. I'll be truthful. And then, yeah, I mean, and then I have the majority of what I'm working with at the time. I'll have it on the table beside me, and, you know, lots of sprays. And then, I mean, I mix everything. So there's, you know, all mixed colors get their own little, but yeah, if I don't stay organized, it just becomes a little bit of a disaster for creating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well, I mean, that's it. It's a great space, though. I mean, yeah, I mean, I can have a couple of large ones on the go.
Yeah.
And still have room to put some to the side if I don't want to look at them right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're talking too much.
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Okay. So I'll just turn it around. Hang on. How do I turn it around?
There's just two little arrows.
The icons at the top of your little section should have a little arrows.
Oh, there. Okay, got it. Sorry. Not very tech savvy. Okay. So I'm actually in my basement. So I've taken over the basement. There's nothing but my stuff down here now. So yeah, that's like goes upstairs, and we have some storage room. So I've got a ton of storage I put those in this year.
Okay.
I used to just kind of have a seating area there, but I needed more space for canvases, and so I just did these little shelves as an IKEA. Don't mind the top, that's such a mess, but they're just IKEA shelves that I took out aside so I can just slot canvases in. I put this little table here for Ben, my son, through lockdown, so he could come and color with me while I got some work done. And I just sort of left it because then he can come and just like chill a little bit. Doesn't always, but yeah. So I have a bit of a seating area. That's like where I read and like do a little drawing or whatever. I sit on my laptop and do computer-y stuff. That's lots of storage for. I used to do a lot of watercolor painting too, so some of that's kind of left over from there. I've got like pages of papers and things like that in there. But this is actually where.
Before you leave this room, can you give us a close? I'm assuming these are some objects that you enjoy having around you, or you might find inspiring. What's on the shelves?
Oh, sure. Okay, so lots of family photos. Always got to have the family photos. Like, look at his little face. But yeah, like books, like candles I picked up on a vacation, some mess, but also like gifts that I've gotten, and this little canvas, I got this after it was my first artist project show in Toronto, and I had sold my first painting, and I'd really connected with this other artist there, and it was like so girly and pretty, and I just loved it, and it was so tiny, so I treated myself as like a congratulations, I sold a piece.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's just there, and it reminds me that like I did a show, and that was it. I remember going before I even started painting again, thinking like, how do these artists have booths? Like, and then I had a booth, and that was a kind of manifestation. I dreamed that up, sort of thing.
Something that you had dreamed about doing, then you had achieved it, right?
Yeah. And then mess, trying to cover up my mess. And yeah, those are just like my to-do lists and plans. And then, yeah, here's where I actually paint. So I just have this is a disgusting floor, sorry. Let me change I have like different slippers for paint slippers. Anyway, so yeah, so there's like more storage for like ones that are drying. And these are all in progress stuff. And like, Lisa, this is like, I'm sorry if you're horrified, but this organization, well, these, I didn't even keep it up because I was like, well, you guys are going to see the real me here.
I think you guys have a lot in common, but perhaps your deep storage and organization systems are a little bit different.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a little bit chaotic, and that's just how I am. But so like I don't really barely even use that many tubes anymore. I just get these quart cans from a company I loved in Montreal, and so they're all so I mix my own colors, but I get like a bunch of these different ones, and my plan is to get color, like to actually make swatches on the top so that I can, because by the time I've grabbed them, I don't even know what color's in it right now. So anyway, I need to figure that out. So then I'm working on pieces and then sink and more storagey stuff. And so it's not a big space where I actually paint, but it's enough for me to like back up and go back and see what I'm working on. And yeah, that's it. Okay.
I'm not seeing any questions yet, so I think I will we'll let you get seated back down there, Stephanie. And I'm going to take us on a walk around the gallery to see the exhibition. And if there's any piece that either of you see, Stephanie or Lisa, that you want to share a little bit more about, a little bit about the title or about the process, or if it gave you a challenge or anything like that, please feel free to chime in. All right, so this is our lovely space in Wortley Village, and out the dark windows is the rest of all the local little businesses. So these two actually greet you as you come in. These are by Lisa, and they're on little round panels. Do you work like that often?
No. I've only done a couple of round. I do want to do some more. It's been hard to get some round pieces like I went in to buy a bunch of round. Actually, I was going to do a couple for the show, and to source them right now is a little tough.
Yeah, it's been difficult.
It's a fun challenge though. Round is a fun challenge.
This almost looks like it's like golden in the lighting right now. But this is one of the big ones that you took on for us, Lisa.
Yeah.
So we see lots of different, like you mentioned, you work in a mixed media process. So there is paint and spray paint and pastel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think this one does, but there's a bit of a collage element to some of the pieces that I will.
Yeah, most of them have a spot on them where I've, done that collage like what we talked about. But so that happened by accident. I can't remember where it is on that one. I
know where it is on this one.
Yeah, there's one where it's really predominant. Yep, that's it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Well, it was by accident. So I work with spray paints as well as one of my mediums, and I had the stencil gets many, many layers on it. If I'm working really quick, I'm constantly using it and rotating it and putting it in a different spot. Anyway, I was really hurrying with the very first time it happened. And I picked up the stencil and it fell out of my hand and landed on the canvas, like paint side down. So I was a little upset because I thought, oh no, like now what? I'm gonna have to go back, paint over, fix it. And I left it because I had to run out. I think I was picking up my daughter from school or something. Anyway, I came back out and went to take it off, and it was stuck on there. And I thought, oh no, I've really done it. Anyway, I gave it a good tug, and like what was left was that really neat, again, like really organic, not planned, and it sticks. And so it stuck, and it's almost like, when you look at some of the detail in the circles, the parts that I do some of the spray with, they're very defined and but then the stencil flip, you actually get the reverse of it, right? And so depending on where it happens and how great of a piece it leaves on there, it can really make kind of a neat element to it.
This is another bit of the wall that I think shows the like the similarities in color palette really well. It's a bit hard to see on screen, of course, that the never-ending challenge of the last couple of years, right? It's always better to see in person. But
yeah, those two,
That
those
one's,
two, Steph and I were
yeah.
looking at them, and that was weird because, again, the palettes are almost identical, but then even where the touch of pinks are on each one is almost the exact same positioning
Yeah.
on both.
It was so weird, and like it definitely was not planned.
No.
But then when we were standing there at the show, noticing those details, it was really, really funny.
Yeah, it's hard to appreciate here, but like some of these green tones, like, and the pinks are like exactly like you took them from the same paint bottle.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're such a nice pair. I'll give you a close-up here of some of Stephanie's texture because it really is incredible.
Delicious looking.
It is. Do you ever have, you were just showing your paintings that were sitting there to dry. So do you ever have trouble with gravity working with such thick paint?
Oh, what do you mean? Like if they start to go down?
Yeah, do they?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I don't, but it might be just because like I don't use any. I just use the paint, and it's really thick right out of the can. Like, it's not, and it is oil, so I just don't find like if I mixed a lot of linseed in it or something, then maybe, or some kind of mediums. But I just use the oil, so it just kind of like spreads on there like butter. It's just like amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. A couple of people have pointed out that it smells a bit like oils in here, but I don't.
I'm sorry. I know.
That's a good smell.
Yeah, I love the smell, but I know. It will go away.
Yeah, it will.
Not forever.
It's still curing a little bit.
Yeah.
I love this piece as well. It seems like a landscape or look at a landscape through a layer of water or something. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So that one, like, and I remember, you mentioning like, like it has more of a landscape feel at the show because like I hadn't really been doing landscape, so it was sort of a little bit different. But when it was something about the movement of the paint in like kind of like the sky top area. I felt like a little higher. I just felt like it made me think of moving clouds, like while I was painting. And I guess just sort of made it transition into some kind of like feeling of a landscape. And I called it, I think, Peace in the Valley. So it had that feeling to me of like of movement and like seasons change and wind and things like that.
You know, from where you're standing, Danielle, you're right. It looks just like rain on a windshield, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. The fun thing about abstract work is, I mean, of course, you're trying to make a beautiful abstract composition, playing with color, texture, line, form, all of that. But the human brain loves to find a picture. And so whenever we have an abstract show on, I love listening to the visitors in the gallery and just them talking about what they see. So
yeah,
kind of fun. So there's that wall that we looked at a little bit earlier. The beautiful installation. And we'll head on up. These ones of Lisa, as I know you mentioned that this bright orange popped up just as the darkest days of winter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't often use orange. I don't know why I gravitated to it, but I was looking for definitely something that would pop, and it worked.
Yeah. This is a beautiful, large, tall piece as well.
I loved when we had visitors at the opening and you could overhear what they were saying, and they were saying like they see snow and they see all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun hearing people's interpretation or just when someone gets completely captivated by a certain color, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The artist does when they're creating.
I love the purples.
I always think it's amazing when people see things like, no, did you mean to put the dog in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No dog. Yeah.
Going through this space, and we had one little extra space when we hung this exhibition. This is actually a piece of Stephanie's that was in her exhibition with us last year, and you can really see how distinctly floral your image was last year compared to what you're creating this year.
Yeah. I definitely think last time though, because it was like a summery spring show, I definitely wanted like to be like full on flowers.
Yeah.
And this year, I was like, it didn't seem quite I definitely wanted a little bit different for this time. Yeah.
That one on the left is my favorite of Stephanie's.
Yeah. Yeah, I posted a little bit about those on my Instagram, I think a little while ago. Yeah, because like those ones were kind of close to my heart, and I didn't always intend for it when I started.
Yeah.
But when I made this sort of pair, all I could think of was these like cozy little dens, and I just felt like it's like this little place where I just want to be wrapped in a blanket, and that's just sort of, it reminded me of being at home and cozy with my family, and so. I don't know what other people see in it. That's what I see in it. But yeah, those were special ones for me.
Oh, I love that, Stephanie.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to move through different series. We talked about this
at
the reception as well, the three of us, how both of you you don't want to be static in your practice, right? So you kind of lean in when you feel the desire to create something different, just lean into that new series. So
yeah, and I don't always use like such deep reds, and so that was kind of like a nice challenge to just sort of like go for it. Like don't be scared, Steph. Like just do it. And, so that was exciting.
Wonderful. Well, I think that maybe I'll just hold this for right now. I think that brings us to the end of our chat for this evening, and it was so nice seeing so many people join us tonight and pop in and out. One of the great things I think about running virtual events, as much as I miss seeing everyone in person, it is easy to jump in and jump out depending on your schedule, and we can have people join us from all over. So thank you for taking a little time tonight to visit with me and Stephanie and Lisa. Their exhibition Synchronicity is on at Westland Gallery until Saturday, so you still have a few days to come on by and see the show. There are also lots of photographs on our social media and a virtual tour on our YouTube as well. Thank you, Stephanie and Lisa.
Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thanks for having us.
Lots of fun. Okay, have a great evening.
You too. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.